These are perfect. Welcome back to Elizabeth Eats. I'm Elizabeth, and it is Christmas cookie week. We've already made chocolate crackle cookies, almond flour cookies, and today we are making a very classic Christmas cookie. This is essentially a chocolate chip cookie, but instead of chocolate chips, we are using red and green M&Ms. Now, I'm a health coach. I almost never use food coloring, but I believe in the 80-20 lifestyle. This is a cookie. This is not meant to be healthy. And for Christmas, I do like to use the red and green M&Ms. If you don't want to use those, you could definitely use chocolate chips or actually any small candies that you would want to use in this cookie recipe. This is an easy recipe to put together, but I know sometimes when people make cookies, they're like, why doesn't mine look like the picture on the website? So I'm going to teach you some tricks and tips to turn out the best cookies, no matter what kind of cookies you're making. So we are going to start with 2 sticks of butter. This recipe can be made with vegan butter if you want, but I'm using just regular unsalted grass-fed butter here. That is traditional in a chocolate chip cookie recipe. So 2 sticks of unsalted butter. If you only have salted butter, that's fine. You can just leave the salt out that we're gonna add. And I need 3/4 of a cup each of brown sugar. Light or dark is fine, and then granulated plain white sugar. 3/4 of a cup of brown sugar packed. I typically do not recommend too many kitchen things, and I actually don't always transfer my ingredients, but this container, I'll link it below, has this little terracotta piece in it for brown sugar, and it keeps your brown sugar soft. It's actually really worth having around. 3/4 of a cup of that. 3/4 of a cup of white sugar. Whenever you're making cookies, you want to, if you're using vanilla extract, you want to add the vanilla to the butter or the fat that's in the cookies. Vanilla is fat soluble, and you will have a deeper vanilla flavor in your cookies if you add it to the fat. So I'm going to add a teaspoon of vanilla extract. Use the best quality pure vanilla extract you can find. I actually usually add a little bit more too, just because it tastes really good. Now we need to grab the mixer and cream these things together. And the reason you do that before you add the rest of the ingredients is you want the sugar to dissolve into the butter and to get really creamy. That will give you a better texture of cookie. You wanna beat this together for 2 to 3 minutes. If you do not have an electric hand mixer, you can do this with a spatula by hand. You need room temperature butter to make these cookies. If your butter is not room temperature, you cannot cream the sugar and the butter together. And you don't wanna melt it because melted butter has a different molecular makeup than softened butter. And your cookies will spread a lot on the baking sheet if you melt it. Let's scrape it down once, just to make sure we get everything incorporated. And then I'll beat that another 2 minutes. All right, now we need 2 eggs. And you can crack your eggs into a little bowl first and then put them in, but I'm a rebel. I almost never get a bad egg, so I'm going to just put them in. And this one, you want to beat the eggs in until it's a uniform mixture, but we actually don't want to overbeat the eggs in because we're not trying to create air pockets with the egg whites. We just want to make sure this is nice and mixed together. All right, that is nice and mixed together. And again, that's why I really like this mixer that has the silicone on it. It just makes a really good mixing experience. I will link everything I'm talking about in the description, and the link to print all of the recipes, this recipe and every recipe in the show, is always in the description as well. All right, at this point, we're going to start adding our dry ingredients. Now, the dry ingredients are something that you can overmix in a cookie. When we put flour into a mixture like this, if we overmix it, we're almost starting to make something like pizza dough where we're enhancing the gluten, and we don't want to do that here. So when you're making a cookie or a baked good, you want to just mix the dry ingredients until they're just mixed into the batter, and then you want to stop. So I'm going to show you how I make all of this in one bowl. I'm using regular all-purpose flour. You could use gluten-free all-purpose flour. You could use half all-purpose flour and half whole wheat flour if you want to do that as well. All whole wheat flour will give you a very dense, kind of unappealing cookie, so I don't think it's worth it. Let's measure our flour. We need 2 1/4 cups of flour. A cup of flour should weigh 120 grams. And if it's between like 117, 123, that's okay. A little bit off is okay. You just don't want it to be too off. 118.3, perfect. I could even add a tiny bit more. Put that in. What will make a difference is if you go like this and you scoop it and you kind of push it in there. That's 150 grams. It's way too much. You're gonna have a really dense cookie if you do that. You could even just get rid of the mixer at this point and use your spatula. Let's mix all that down. And then let's add our other cup. We need 1 teaspoon of baking soda and then a teaspoon of salt. And then I'm going to add one secret ingredient here that my mom always added to chocolate chip cookies. That is 1/3 cup of whole rolled oats. This just gives the cookies a little bit more body. It does add some fiber, but I'm not doing it for the nutrition. I'm doing it because I want to add a little bit of body to the cookies. You can skip the whole rolled oats if you want. So 1/3 cup right in. I'm actually gonna get rid of the mixer at this point. This is pure gold. All right, so I'm just gonna go in here. And again, just mix this until the dry ingredients are all just incorporated. The one thing about chocolate chip cookies is that you wanna refrigerate the dough for 2 hours. I know, no one wants to wait. You can bake them right away. You will have a better cookie that has better texture and holds up better, it has better body to it if you refrigerate the dough for 2 hours. And that's because it takes about 2 hours for the butter to saturate the flour. That is just mixed. I do see a little bit of flour, but it's fine. Now I'm gonna add 2 cups of red and green chocolate candies. Always save out about 1/3 to 1/4 cup to place on top of the cookies right before you bake them. That's why the cookies on the internet look so pretty. All right, mix this until it's just folded and mixed in. And you wanna cover this with something because it's going in the refrigerator and you don't wanna dry out. You can leave them in the refrigerator up to 24 hours just like this. And then when we bake them, I'm going to show you how I reserve part of the dough to freeze so that if we want cookies later in the month or maybe next month, we don't have to bake all of these at once. Into the refrigerator for 2 hours. All right, it's time to bake our cookies. This dough has been chilling for 2 hours, so it's perfect. We're gonna bake some of them right now, and then I'm going to show you how I freeze them for later. So when I make chocolate chip cookies, I don't necessarily want, this recipe will make 24 to 30 cookies. I don't necessarily need 24 to 30 cookies all the time. So I make these frequently with my kids, just with chocolate chips, and we're gonna bake 12 of them. The rest we're going to roll into balls and freeze, and then put the frozen balls into either a stasher bag or a plastic bag. And then whenever you want a chocolate chip cookie, you can just go pull an individual frozen dough cookie out of the freezer and bake it so that you can have cookies for months instead of just baking all of them at once. Let's bake our cookies first. So I have a silicone mat. This is just for easy cleanup and to make sure our cookies don't stick. These are heat safe up to 500 degrees. Usually bake a cookie 350 to 375 Fahrenheit. So these are great to bake on, but if you don't have one, you can skip it, of course. I have my dough here. I've got a 1 tablespoon cookie scoop. If you don't have one of these, no problem. Just roll these into 1-inch balls. And because the dough is chilled, these are actually quite easy to roll. And place them a few inches apart on a baking sheet. So we'll just roll these out. Let me get the 12, get them into the oven, and then I will roll the rest to freeze. The thing with cookies is just make sure that you roll them all as best you can to be the same size, because if the cookies are different sizes when you bake them, they'll cook at different rates, and then you'll have some that are undercooked and some that are overcooked. So as best you can, make sure they're roughly the same size. What I'm gonna do, I don't wanna flatten them all the way. I'm just gonna flatten them a little bit so I can put some candies on top of them. I'm just giving them a little gentle press to make the top a little flat so I can take my reserved candies and just press a couple on top. This is a fun thing to do if you have any kids around or someone who would want to help you make these. Almost done. Now the candies will crack because we're putting them in the oven, but it's part of the charm of the cookies. I'm going to bake these at 350 degrees for 9 to 11 minutes. All ovens are different. I'll show you what you're looking for, but check them at 9 minutes and up to 11 minutes. You just want the edges to be a nice golden brown, but you don't want them to get too dark. So into the oven, and I'll show you what you want to look for. For the rest of these, I'm going to do the exact same thing, but since we're not baking them, I can actually put them pretty close together. If you put these into your freezer bag right away, they're all going to stick together and be hard to pull out individually. So you want to freeze them for 1 to 2 hours and then put them in your freezer bag, and they will last 3 months in the freezer, so you can just pull the cookies out and bake them whenever you want. If you bake them from frozen, you want to bake them at 375 degrees Fahrenheit. And you'll want to just like look at the 10-minute mark. It might need a little bit more time to like 13 or 14 minutes. So this is what you want this to look like. Now set this in your freezer for 1 to 2 hours. These are perfect Instagram, Pinterest, photo ready. You can take still while they're hot, but be very careful because you don't want to burn yourself. And just very gently, if you want to, press a few more candies where they look like they're missing, you know, the cookies to be photo ready. Any cookies you want to let cool for 5 to 10 minutes on the baking sheet or on a wire rack, because when they're really hot, they will fall apart really easily. This is what you're looking for in a perfect chocolate chip cookie. Those nice golden edges, just absolutely perfect. I need to taste this one. Perfectly crispy edges, soft cookie. The flavor is incredible. I highly recommend making these. I hope you enjoyed Cookie Week with me. I certainly enjoyed it. Whether you celebrate Christmas or any holiday, I hope one or more of these will become part of your family favorites too. And if you like these recipes, please like this video and subscribe to the channel. I will link everything we've talked about during Cookie Week in the description on these videos. You can also go directly to my website, elizabethrider.com, to print these recipes and find over 350 other recipes. And make sure you sign up for my weekly newsletter if you like to get notifications directly into your inbox. I will see you next week.